Hi guys, welcome back to Chess the Matthew. So on this video, we will tackle on how to beat the Ruy Lopez opening. So the set opening start with the moves of e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop to b5, intending to capture this knight on c6 because it was the defender of this pawn. And later on, the white here can grab this pawn if this knight will be removed on c6. So here the black defend the position with a solid knight g to e7, defending his knight. And here the white plays d4, so that after it takes d4, the white here can castle on the king side. And the black here play the move knight g6 to open up some lines for his bishop and for his queen. And so that, for example, if this bishop will be developed and later on the black king can start to castle. So here the white captured the d4 and to equalize the material on the board, and the black here played the move bishop to e7, intending to castle on the king side. And here the white attacks the g7 pawn with knight f5, and the black defend with castling. And after the knight c3, a developing move, the black here played the move bishop to c5 to put his bishop on a good square, and so that he can actually put his rook here to attack this pawn, and again with an attack to the f2 pawn on this position. So the white here played the move queen to h5, trying to attack on the center, and after, for example, d6 with an intention to grab this knight with this bishop. So bishop to g5 for white to attack the queen, and after, for example, the black here played the move queen to e8, then there is a simple knight takes to g7, in which the white here actually win a pawn. And the black here immediately grab the knight on g7 with an extra 2 pawns on the position. But after king takes g7, there is just a simple queen h6 check, and after king h8, bishop h6 check. In just 14 moves after king g8, the white wins through king g7 checkmate, because the queen was actually supported by the bishop and there is no legal defense against this check, and it is already now a checkmate. So going back on the initial position after e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, the Ruy Lopez opening, the black here actually play a solid variation of the Ruy Lopez with knight g to e7 to avoid any double pawns on this position, because, for example, after a6 and bishop takes and d takes a6, the white here can grab now the pawn and again leaving the position against the pawn structure of black with double c file on this position. So after knight g e7, the white here sacrifice a pawn here temporarily, because after it takes d4, it allows now for white here to castle on the king side. And after knight g7, intending to have king side development here for the black, so that after this bishop will be moved, then the black here can now castle. But after knight g6, there is knight takes d4, regaining back the pawn deficit of white. And after, for example, bishop to e7, although the black here can try another move with bishop to c5, but there is just a simple knight f5 attacking the pawn. And after, for example, the black defend the pawn, but there's just again queen h5, and after a6, bishop g5 attacking the queen. After queen a8, knight takes, king takes, and again there is checkmate after queen h6 check, and after king h8, bishop f6 check, and after king g8, and checkmate in just 13 moves. So going back after bishop e7, there's a move knight f5 here for white that actually attacks the undefended pawn of black here on the g7, and after castling, defending his pawn, and there's just simple developing move for white after knight c3, and after bishop c5, again opening some lines for his queen, and again putting his bishop on a good square with c5 that actually attacks the f2 pawn on this position. But there's just again a simple queen h5, and after d6, bishop g5 attacking the queen, and after queen a8, there is a sacrifice move of white after knight takes g7, because after king takes g7, it allows now here for white to play queen to h6. And again, after on this position, even though the black here tries another move after queen to e5, but still there is just a simple h6, an intention here for white to play knight f5 to attack the rook on f8, but after, for example, queen takes h5, knight takes h5, rook d8, because here, for example, if the black here will play his rook here on e8, there is a fork on knight f6. So after the black here save his rook to d8, but there's just a simple knight to d5, and let's say, for example, after bishop to g4, but there's just simple knight d f6 check, and after king h8, and again there is bishop g7, a checkmate against the black king, because this bishop was actually defended by this knight. So going back after king takes g7, that it allows here for white to play queen h6 check, and even though the black here plays the move king g8, but still it is the same after bishop f6, and after bishop takes f2 check, rook takes, queen e5, and again a checkmate in 15 moves with queen g7 checkmate. So going back after king takes g7, here comes now the queen h6 check for white, and after king h8, bishop f6 check for white again, and after the first move to king to g8, because it is the only square he can go, because the other square here was actually controlled by the white pieces, and after king g8, there is a checkmate on 14 moves after king g7 checkmate. So going back after e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, even though the black here play a solid variation of the Ruy Lopez for black, which is the knight g7, but still there is d4, a sacrifice move that allows here for white to castle immediately, and after knight g6, intending to solve this problem on the king side, and after knight takes d4, bishop e7, and with an intention soon for black to castle on the king side, but there is knight f5 that attacks the pawn, and after castling and knight c3, the black here again move his bishop twice to bishop c5 after bishop e7 and bishop c5. After, for example, bishop c5, queen h5, d6 with an intention to grab our knight here, but after bishop to g5 and a blunder move queen to a8 that allows her the white to win in just 14 moves. The white here can actually play a defense here on this position via playing f6 rather than a blunder move of queen to a8. After, for example, f6, then the white here shall retreat his bishop to e3 with equal chances on the board. So going back after bishop g5, the blunder move queen to a8 and knight takes g7, the black here was actually hopeless after king takes g7 and queen h6 check, because wherever the black king here goes, it is still a checkmate on the g8 square. For example, after king h8, bishop f6 check, king g8, and queen g7 checkmate. So that's all. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to subscribe.